Hey, I'm so honored to have you on today's episode. It is a very special episode as I introduce to you the lovely Kathleen May, where we have a fabulous conversation. I remember, it has to be like 6 years ago that we met. And I remember I was sitting in the audience and I was just listening to this woman speak, and I was in such awe. I loved how she articulated, how she had the ability to look at things differently and give you the opportunity to look at things differently, just with the most basic things. And especially with the topic that we're going to be addressing here, it was such a great conversation. We actually move into a 2-part series. And so we talk a little bit about change and life under renovation, which is actually her podcast, which you can go and find for yourself. She is an author. She is a teacher. She is just a mom of 4. She is us. She knows all the things that we go through. And she has the experience of having the ability to, like I said, articulate and just kind of give you a different view and get you thinking from the most basic things. And what I want to address today is change and how we handle change. Everybody is absolutely different. We have a great conversation about this. What is change? But more importantly, not just change, but a lot of the words that, come along with how we feel about change. Some of those things that get us worried, like fear, or maybe some negative emotions like anger, some of those things that you can go through in the process of change, your actual relationship. It's not the word, it's the relationship, the feeling, the attachment that you have to that total experience and word and characteristic. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our conversation today. I've chatted enough, and welcome to our episode with Kathleen May, a beautiful interview and just experiencing the world of change. Are you doing a podcast? What's going on?
Yeah, we are. We're doing a podcast for a book that we've written. I say we, I'm not sure who we is, but me, I guess. We, because it's like, it takes a village
Yeah,
to do
I know
this,
totally know
right?
what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah,
I always say we. I'm
yeah.
such a team player. I'm not like me. I'm not a Mimi. Like I don't
No,
get that.
no. And there's so many people that have had a part of it that I just feel like if I don't use the term we, and people are like, well, who's we? Well, no, I wrote the book, but there's all the stuff into it. So I wrote a book. I wrote several little romance fun novels, but this is it's called Life Under Renovation.
Hmm.
And you will remember, maybe I think you were there. It came as a concept to me at one of the Arbonne, you know, um, conferences that we were at,
Mhm.
or and I spoke at it, and Jen had asked me to speak, and I was like a mess. And I realized like I had come before in front of the same group, and I wasn't sure I'd done enough to earn a space again.
Hmm.
And that's where this whole concept of wait a minute, like what is with the concept that we get to a destination and then we've arrived. Maybe we're always transforming. Maybe we're always renovating. It's like,
Always, yeah.
right. And no one questions you if finish your kitchen renovation and then you move on to doing a living room fireplace renovation. People are like, oh, yeah, renovate houses, do it, sell it, renovate another one. But we don't look at our life kind of that, the same way. And then I kind of got the metaphor working for me, like, because my renovation didn't go the way I wanted it to, but it's
Mm.
still a really beautiful renovation. In fact, I like it better in the journey that I'm in now, right?
Mhm.
But I don't know if you've ever said, I want my sink in the island, and the builder says, no, it has to go over here at the window. And 6 months later, standing at the window watching your children play, you're like, the sink belonged here,
Yeah,
right? Right?
totally. That's it's what we need, and it's how it works really well, and we don't have the sometimes with where we are in life, we don't have the capacity to see how it could be better somewhere else. Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We get so attached to our concept, our plan. And then what we tend to do is instead of just saying, well, wait, where's this going? Maybe there's other options. We abandon the whole plan and we just go back to,
Mm,
well, then I'll just go back to not getting physically healthy, or not going back to school, or not, you know what I mean? Like we apply to that school, we get brave enough to say, okay, I'm going to do something in my education. We apply to the school, the first one turns us down, and we say, well, it wasn't meant to be. Well, no, it just wasn't meant to be with that school. Or
mhm.
maybe, in my case, I went back to be a teacher, and 8 years in went, this isn't it. Like I'm,
Mm,
47. I've invested all this time. This is like a second career already. And I'm standing here going, uh-oh, I, I don't know. I think I just built plan B that I thought was plan A.
mm,
So, I mean, at that point I could have went, well, there you go, and just stay where you are. But I looked around and people were so unhappy and I felt it deep inside and thought, nope, this is where we renovate. So I think I wanted to create this book for people, this venue, this podcast, which is what the podcast is about, to say it's a constant thing.
mhm,
Don't don't feel like there's the thing you're going to read or the thing you're going to do that you're going to instantly feel like you're there. Instead, I believe we're just always putting, another happy brick on our wall. We're just always continuing to build something beautiful. And sometimes our dream gets outdated. Maybe we
mm,
outgrow it.
mhm.
And so you have the courage to say, well, that dream was good.
Or
I mean,
maybe we move.
right, right? Exactly. So, and less judgment around it. Like, there's a lot of people out there like, so what are you doing now? And they kind of judge you because you haven't settled into something, simple and ordinary that they're used to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if I moved to Texas this summer from Ontario
Yep.
and I've gone back to school to be a lawyer. So it's a big international move with a return to school with, three teenagers.
Oh gosh,
And
I
there
know.
was a lot of bumps along the road and a lot of times that I thought, I think you made a mistake. But what's weird is the right stuff would just unfold. Like in that moment when I thought, Kathleen, you got three teenagers and two dogs in a hotel room on coming on month 3 because you can't find a house because the housing market is so on fire. Maybe you made a mistake. And then, I was about to just go for any house, like just basically told the realtor, just put me in any house. And literally moments from signing it, the dream house, I was closing. This was the weirdest thing. I had spreadsheets full of houses we looked at, and I had like months of looking at houses. My poor realtor. And I was literally saying, yeah, I'm just going for this house. I did not like it. It did not give me a good vibe, but I literally was just done with being in a hotel. And as I was closing down the realtor app that we were using, this house pops up and I was like, it's perfect. And I messaged him at like 11 o'clock at night, like, don't hate me, but did you see this house? Do you think we could look at it? Okay.
At
And I'm
11
sure,
o'clock, like you're
and I'm sure he thought, this crazy woman, like, I'm sure.
No, they do that. They do that. Like I love our realtor too. Like she will
Right?
message me back at that time. I'm like, "You're amazing.
Oh,
Like you love
God
what you
bless
do."
him. He said, I've got you an appointment at 8 a.m. You're the first person to go through the house. So, and I have a challenge because I'm an international, I'm a student. So my income is a challenge. Like it takes a bit to pull a deal together for us because you're not, the ideal client necessarily. Well, we toured the house at 8 a.m. He called the other realtor right away. That was a Thursday. By Friday morning, it was closed. By the Sunday, we moved in.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
But
So
that's
we almost,
alignment. I feel like that do you know what I'm saying?
yes,
Like you saw that,
yes,
you felt it,
yep.
and that was our experience with
And
our house too. Yeah.
you have to trust it, right? You just have to wait for things to align and trust it. And people, it sounds so hokey. People are like, and the same thing happened for me with, the schools. There was multiple schools that had accepted me. Which one will I go to? Like this, that type of alignment just happens over and over. And I think you just have to, position yourself, believe in it, pray and work hard, right?
I'm on the same page and I've actually, I've had this conversation before, what all the time is to have the ability to really listen to yourself, those things that
Yes.
sit within you that the whispers, right? The whispers, they're there, they're
Mhm.
yours for a reason, and they're not just they're not something to overlook. They're there for a reason.
We just so quickly hear the negative thoughts before we hear the positive ones. You know,
We think too much, then listen to our heart for sure.
We
Which
we overthink, like, we're overthinkers, which I am. I'm a chronic overthinker, but I'm also one of those super emotional. I tried to explain that I'm super emotional about everything. Like, stuff can bring me, like, and I have to constantly put the energy into sorting out those emotions and
mhm,
being like, "Okay, that's unreasonable. What a reasonable person," like, I kind of sort them. Like,
mhm,
"Wait a minute, I liked that one. Bring that one back. Let's get some clarity on that. And so I put a lot of effort into it. But what has come from that is really being in tune with, that feeling, that alignment, knowing, yep, like, and I'll tell you what inspired the move here really was, I read this lovely house at Blue Mountain, Collingwood, kind of a great life from the outside of it, teaching kind of, but so much stress. And I would go for runs and I would just keep circling the block because I didn't want to go home.
Mm.
Like literally my body was like, let's just do one more lap. Like, and there's nothing wrong with my home. It had not become where I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly it was like the things kept getting removed from me, like everything that was happening with COVID. And then my job changed on me again. And it was just like the universe was just going to keep taking stuff away until I got the message and putting the right stuff in front. Like, oh, you've been accepted to this school in Texas. Oh, you've been accepted to this school. Like, and finally I was like, I'm going. I'm doing it. And it unfolded.
Yeah.
I didn't have every detail planned out.
But we don't
We
have
had
to.
no.
Yeah, no, we don't have to. I feel like there needs to be such an element of trust and trust in all areas. And part of that is trusting yourself when you have that feeling or that signal or that whisper inside you, trusting that you actually know more than you know, right?
Yes.
So many
Yes.
people think like
Absolutely.
it's in the head, but there's so much more to knowing than just what you're processing.
And just because something feels right, or just because something, aligns for you, doesn't mean it will be easy. That's
Mhm,
a misunderstanding, right? Like
mhm.
it, everything isn't meant to be perfect. You're meant to learn things from that part of the journey. In fact, I believe that the most beautiful things come out of the hardest moments.
100%.
So the
100%.
transition, you have to be prepared to transition into those really hard moments. But the more you experience going through a hard moment and coming out in a better place, the more willing you become to go into that hard moment.
Mhm.
The more prepared you become, right? Because
Yeah.
you have that muscle memory of, I'll survive this.
Mhm.
And I think you have to train yourself for that. Like,
Yeah.
what's something super hard? That's why I started running.
Mhm.
Like I started running out of control and anger going through a divorce. That was like the way I controlled myself from writing nasty emails that I knew had no purpose. Instead, I physically went out and I walked and I walked and then I ran, right? But then eventually it was like, wow, I ran 5K. And then it was like, I think I can do harder. Like I think I can do better. And then one day I ran a half marathon. I'm like, look at you can do hard things. So then when it became like, can I get through something? I had this reference point of I can do hard things because I was never a runner and I learned to do that. And it certainly wasn't comfortable. Now, other people might be natural runners and it might be easy for them, but that's not a hard thing to get through, right? Like
Yep.
I hauled horses all over the states. That's what it was an instinct. People go, oh my gosh, like you drove horses from Ontario to Texas? How long does that take? And it was like, I love it. Um, but some people think that would be a hard thing. So I think that's a personal experience piece of, but having that reference point to say, I can do hard things. And I set myself up on purpose that way. Like going into law school, it was like having a reference of, okay, you can do this because you've survived, a
Mhm.
really horrible time. You've gotten through a divorce. You've helped your children through all these things. So, you've been a mom to four. Let's be real.
It's almost like you
Beautiful.
have a better relationship with the hard stuff now because I feel like so many people, when something challenging comes into life, you you resort to running away, you hide, you deter, you don't want to it's not I don't want to even say face your fears. It's just having a relationship with it, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you grow so much more from pain than pleasure. You really do.
Mhm. There was a certain so I was married for 18 years and then divorced and then a relationship for 4. And you go through like when you're dating in your 30s and 40s, it's not that pleasant of an experience. But there was a moment that I realized when, coming out of kind of my last long-term relationship, and I almost felt relieved that I was so hurt because I've been, you become very concerned that you won't feel that disappointment, that hurt. And being hurt and knowing that you miss that person and knowing that you'll heal from it means you can do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So, people kind of want to rush through that process. And I have to tell you, I have a little bit of it. Not that, not that you want to experience it, but there is some relief in knowing I have girlfriends who, just have shut down. They've closed off. They're like, no, don't want it. That is not who I am. And so there is some peace, there is some growth that comes from that process of healing and becoming you again on your own. And that, you know, uh, uh, it's maybe wrong. There may be people that jump all over saying like, oh, she's, liking the breakup. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there was relief in being like, okay, if I was hurt, I can be hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
I can
And
do
you
this
like
again,
and you like
which
who
means I
you're
can love
becoming.
again. Right, which means I can love again. And every time
Yeah.
that happens, you learn something more about yourself,
Yeah. Isn't that
right?
I love that. I love to get very curious about myself. And
Yes.
we're already addressing the topic, but we wanted to talk about change
Transition.
specifically today.
Yes. Yes, we did.
A transition, change,
Well,
kind of same
because
thing, right?
yeah, because I think so many people, instead of embracing it and getting excited about it, I think we have fear sometimes around it, right? And we're seeing that right now all around us. I mean, let's look at COVID for a sec. We've become very, I think we have a group of people who are fighting the concept of change or transition back to the our what used to be our normal.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, that needs to be understood. We have to have empathy for that piece. Even though we don't necessarily agree with it, we have to recognize is it was a big move to change to this isolation, different way of living. It's going to be a big transition to change back. We look at it all the time with children in teaching and education, right?
Mhm.
Changing their person, like the teacher who's in front of them is a big
Right.
transition, changing their rooms, changing their routine. So from the very beginning, we gravitate to knowing, we love our kids to have routine. I've watched them do great with routine and schedule and knowing what to anticipate, which drives me nuts. Like I don't want a routine
Yeah.
because then you become attached to it and then you stop growing. Like flexibility, right, is what embraces change.
Mhm. And I
And
was
so
I
and
sorry, I just to kind of
no,
touch on what you're talking about, I was thinking to myself my own experience through change because I actually I love change. I love
me
it.
too.
There are times I feel uncomfortable with change, don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but I'm thinking to myself, if I really love change at times, it's more so that change isn't going to happen if I'm more comfortable than with the change not happening than for it to change. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes,
So I love change. And those of you listening, probably there's experiences where you love change. But for example, in the scenario that we're talking about, I think there's more uncomfortable feelings with the change that could happen than
yes,
with the situation that you're in right now. That's why somebody doesn't want to change. They're really enjoying where they are right now. So, in order for you to get to
yes,
that point where
yeah,
change is motivating for you, you need to be more uncomfortable with lack of change than with the change, right?
right.
Yeah. So
And
it's funny.
and
Go
so
ahead. Yeah.
absolutely. And let's recognize like look at in parenting, and I will tell you, I wasn't a big person of routine, if I'm totally honest. And then I recognized, through becoming a teacher and even just through like my children teaching me how much smoother my day went when I had routine for them. Like I ran multiple different businesses. I taught riding lessons. I had a horse boarding. I had summer camps. So for me to offer my children routine, I had, had to have support. I had to have nannies and daycares in place and things like that. And that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be their mom. And so we might be, having breakfast and running out to the barn together, and they would be chasing kittens through the alleyways. And but when I put routine in place and I acknowledge their need for their specific nap time, their need to eat, life went so much smoother. And in the classroom, when my kids that I was teaching had a routine posted that they knew when to anticipate certain things, life went so much smoother. So I think there's a balance, right? Because we do need our routines and we do need kind of a schedule, but we need to be prepared for times in life when we need to embrace the change and say, today we're going to do things differently. I think we have to teach our children and ourselves to be comfortable with change, with transitions, and understanding we can go back to that, but at this moment, this is what we're transitioning through, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think, well, and what people need to understand is there's two sides, I think, to this. We briefly had touched on the whole, like the COVID and the change piece there. I'm in Texas where we don't wear masks and there are no mandates.
Mm-hmm.
So I could not, like, was part of my decision to come to Texas about COVID. I've wanted to be in Texas for about 14 years and I'm quite familiar with it. So, long before COVID, I was this was a destination I'd considered relocating to. I'm a woman who loves the sun and horses, so it's a good location for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I will not tell you that certainly I was not in a good place with what was going on. And on the other side of it, I couldn't continue to be a part of, my children living out of fear, and,
Mm-hmm.
being afraid if they were stepping on the right X. And, when we would wait in line to go into the grocery store and not knowing if we could walk down this aisle or that aisle because which side should we be on? And there being, my children being panicked over reaching in front of someone at the grocery store to get something off of a shelf. I can't explain to you the transition that took place when we climbed off the plane in Texas and they were allowed to not wear masks and they saw people smiling and it was just, it's people aren't mad here.
Mm.
People are not fearful. Now, if you want to wear a mask, there are certainly people wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
You go into stores and you see people wearing masks. It's totally acceptable. If you don't, there's no judgment on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be vaccinated, certainly we are, and that was our choice, but there's many people who aren't, and that's their choice as well. It's very respected.
Mm.
So that's the experience we've had. And we have been here since July. My son go-kart races, we go to concerts, we've been to water parks, we shop at the malls, we eat out all the time in closed restaurants, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it goes on both sides of that, right? The change piece and the transition piece
Mm-hmm.
is also hard for those of us who weren't comfortable. And we tried and we knew in the beginning for, the greater good we needed to. And I believe in the beginning we had to, understand things and be fair and respectful. But then as things progressed, there seemed to be less and less empathy and understanding for those of us who said, like, this is impacting my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Mm-hmm.
impacting my belief system. Stephanie, have you ever experienced something so, like, you want to go along with it for, peace, but
Mm-hmm.
it interferes with your beliefs so greatly? As a teacher, I was asked for the first time just before COVID to strike. Don't remember if you remember Red for Ed, and it was around class sizes, and there
Mm-hmm.
was a work to
Yep.
rule happening in February. And I strongly don't believe in it. And it's a $500 fine for every teacher who refuses to strike per day.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, like, it was a struggle because I know, oh, Kathleen, just do it. Just do it. It's easy. You're there with your peers. You're just walking back and forth with a picket. And I wanted to. I understand the part of the logic that says just do it. But there is this thing inside of me that's like, that's not right. Like, I physically can't do it
Mm-hmm.
because I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I don't believe it's really working for the cause. I don't believe as a teacher I'm being a good role model when I do that. I do not believe it is right for me to take my spoiled self and go interfere with my parents of my students' day job that they need to go to because there has to be a better way. It's interfering negatively with too many people's lives. There has to be a better way than that. It's just harming too many people. So I couldn't, and I felt the same when we used to strike for agriculture. Do you remember when, my dad was one of those that would take the tractor and go down to Parliament with it? And
Yes.
I would struggle
Mine
with that because
too.
I'd be right. And I would be like, Dad, this is a $250,000 tractor, and you're stopping the waitress making $30,000 a year from going to her job. Like, it doesn't sit with me. There's got to be a better way to prove our point.
Hmm.
And so I have that. I can't stop it. It will destroy me if I don't listen to it.
Mhm.
And I know there are other people who share that, and I listen to it. And I say, I'm really trying not to cause problems and not to be dramatic, but the core of who I am does not agree with it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's what started to happen for me. And so I couldn't stay. I couldn't. And so I feel for all those people that didn't have an option or don't have an option who are now feeling the same way and yet are being shamed. Like the media was really shaming me for feeling that way. Every day
Mhm.
we would see it on the television. Every single day there was media, breakfast television. I eventually just stopped watching certain stations because it was all about shaming people who were, even slightly feeling like this wasn't a comfortable thing or, wanting to see more of their family. And so, right, because we had the number of people allowed in their homes. So I think though the piece that concerns me is where do we lose empathy for each other and understanding that, I can respect that you feel okay with it or you feel better and safer in a certain environment, but can you not respect that I don't? I actually feel like I'm being held captive in a situation and so I think and I wonder too, is there a piece there that Stephanie that would be taken differently if a man expresses that feeling than when a woman does? Like, am I just being overly dramatic, or am I sharing with you my mental health story? You know,
Yeah, I don't know the answer behind
constant.
that, but, um,
No, I don't think we can. But
yeah, yeah. Uh, and here's the thing, I don't think we need to.
no,
Right? That's the
no,
whole key out of the entire piece that you're sharing is just having respect for each other, and the fact that
right?
we all are entitled and deserving of having our own beliefs and views, and the fact that we need to all understand that as individuals, it means that we are all going to and need to run our lives differently, not the same. And so
Yes, yes.
having the idea in your head that it's so funny that we're going down this road, but having the idea in your head that you
No,
need to have somebody else see something or believe something the exact same way you do, or you can't like them, or you hate them,
right, right.
or you can't get along is absurd. Like
Yes,
in our entire lives, if you have
because
ever
we
heard.
all have such different
Mhm.
we all have such different experiences.
True. Yeah, and that's
So
what's so neat about us having an interaction together and having a
mhm,
conversation is that we bring different things to the table, and it doesn't mean that they have to be a battle. They can work
no.
together.
Mhm. In school, we would teach students about, that we would do healing circles for them when they've had conflicts, right? And the language we would use is, the words you use, maybe you didn't intend them to hurt her, or him, but if their feelings were hurt, if they felt hurt, you still have to own the outcome.
Mhm.
Okay. So the feelings are still justified. So even if what you said wasn't intended that way, that's not even the point. Even if your intentions are well, the problem is we have to be responsible of managing the outcome. And it really doesn't mean you have to change it. It just means you have to acknowledge it.
Mhm.
And just saying, my words hurt you or my actions hurt you, that wasn't the intention. I'm not even sure it needs to be an apology.
Yep.
I think it just needs to be empathy and understanding around it, right? And it's really, we are going to have so much trauma to deal with children
Oh,
coming out of this, with
I know.
adults. Like we're really looking, and the whole thing, all of this goes back to one word, and it really connects strongly to this conversation around transition and change. And the real driving force is fear.
Mm.
And it's what holds us from doing everything, right? Like, even as we were talking about life under renovation, we stop from doing things out of fear a
Mhm.
lot. And,
Mhm.
and we maybe don't address it as fear. We frame it as logic or, it doesn't seem like it's a fit at the time, or it wasn't the best thing for us to do. But what we really need to say is, but am I making these reasons out of fear? Let's simplify it.
Mm-hmm.
We've got people out there who talk about health journeys. This is a big thing. Losing weight is, and what I will tell you is, these people who want to lose weight or get in, I don't even like that terminology, but they want to live a healthier lifestyle, right? They have a vision for themselves. And that is the most common beginning of a renovation. Because when you take control of something like that and you see the growth that comes when you look in the mirror and love who looks back at you, that's where you start to think, what else could I do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we see these transitions happen because they get closer to being the person they thought they would physically. And then they think, imagine if I was who I really wanted to be in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted to, whatever it might be, travel, have a house, go back to school, all these different things. You do that one step, and you're successful, and you learn the way to do a transition in that one space. But you kind of say, well, what's the fear to getting healthy? Why would anyone fear? Well, we fear failing.
Mm-hmm.
So we fear that if I said, if I put it out there and say, I'm going to do whatever, set a distance and run it, or I'm going to take up bodybuilding and lift weights, or I'm going to join a cycle class. What if I start it and something happens that I don't finish it? It's the fear of that accountability that stops us.
What if we could redirect our fear? Everybody has fear, right? That's kind of what you're saying here. What if we can take our fear, and instead of being fearful of what could happen if I do, what about being fearful of what if I don't? What does that mean if I don't?
Right. And what if fear became part of the journey?
It is.
Remember how I said I almost like it when I go through grief because I feel the growth of it? What if you looked for some fear? What if you said, I can feel the fear coming on, which is a good thing because it means I'm pushing my boundaries. I'm questioning if I can be successful. You got to know, as running an LSAT, oh, I got to tell you, like, the number of times I'm reading this stuff thinking, you might have bitten off more this time than you could chew, Kathleen. The fear is definitely there. And I'm like, no, like I recognize, no, this is good. Fear is good. This is stretching. This is, this is going to be your next great feeling on the other side of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those are the things we have to do. Like you just said, what if we embraced it? What if we looked for fear?
What if you had a better relationship with fear?
Boom.
So listen, I really enjoyed spending these moments with you today, and I hope you did too. My gratitude is through the roof. But in order for us to make even more magic in this world, we've got to spend more time together. Make it your focus to connect consistently so you can continue to gain and change up your days to come. Secondly, we are a direct result of who we hang around with, and now you're in the world of becoming better. By sharing this episode, you are making an impact in someone's life, and frankly, we're just better together. And don't forget to tag me so I can send some love and shout-outs back, my friend. Until next time, this is your host, Steph, on Be Bold.